to Seekers and Cynics. This is Bodmin Road Church. My name is Richard Bentley. We were asking last time, what is Christmas? And we saw that the teaching of the Bible and the message of the church has been that Jesus was God incarnate, God in human flesh, God himself coming to earth to meet with us, to connect with us. That's the heart of the Christmas message, and what I said we'd think about next time, so that's this time, is there any evidence for that? If Christians are claiming that Jesus was God, I mean that's a big claim. I accept that. That's a massive, crazy claim. Either it's true or it's the biggest load of rubbish you've ever heard. There can't be anything in between. Is it true, and is there any evidence that God sent Jesus, that Jesus was in fact God himself? Well, what would you expect from a human being, a man who was simultaneously God? Let's think about that. What would you expect? Is there any evidence there? Well, if someone was God, first of all, I would expect it to show up in his teaching, in his words, in what he said. And the simple fact is that the teaching of Jesus was then and is now absolutely revolutionary and world-changing. In our Western civilization, our legal system, our education system, our politics is all based on the ethics and the teaching of Jesus Christ. 2,000 years on, we forget how radical it was and how his ethical teaching has laid the foundations for our society. The Sermon on the Mount is unmatched in its sharpness, in its depth, in its breadth. The teaching of Jesus is exactly what I would expect from somebody who claimed to be God. Not banal cliches, but radical, insightful, psychologically accurate, meaningful, life-changing teaching. And that's exactly what we get in the Gospels. The same thing I'd expect from somebody who claimed to be God and somebody who was God, I would expect his actions to be powerful. And again, we see exactly that in the Gospel stories. The actions of Jesus are exactly what you would expect from somebody who was God. He tells a storm in the middle of a lake to shut up and calm down, and the waves to be calm. He walks on water. He opens blind eyes. He opens deaf ears. Those are the actions that I would expect of somebody who was God. And yet, what's interesting is it all gets recorded in the Gospels in a rather matter-of-fact, plain way. It's not hammed up. It's not presented with lots of look at me, pomp and ceremony, which of course is what I would do if I could walk on water. It's just presented plainly and simply in the Gospels without any fuss. Exactly what you'd expect from a man who was God. Now, I know for some of you the whole issue of miracle will be a stumbling block. Is that really possible? And we'll look at some of that in the new year. We'll tackle science and Christianity and miracles and all of that. But for now, let's just say the evidence for Jesus shows up in his actions. But thirdly, for somebody who claimed to be God, for somebody who was God, I would expect his character to be peerless. His words to be profound, his actions to be powerful, and his character to be peerless. And isn't that what we find? Jesus Christ was a man who loved the outcast and the underdog, who risked his reputation to reach the untouchable, who exemplifies absolute unselfishness and never self-pity, who shows humility but not weakness, sharpness and courage to challenge authority and hypocrisy, but never nastiness, kindness with people, great kindness, but never indulgence, great patience and time with children who were brought to him. The only accusation they could find to throw at him at his trial was blasphemy, the claim to be God. His character is peerless, a winsome personality. Why else would working class fishermen have left their boats to follow him if there was not this winsome personality? And then radically at the end, he forgives the people who crucified him. Bernard Levin, who used to write a column in the Times, he wrote this: "Is not the nature of Christ, in the words of the New Testament, enough to pierce the soul of anyone with a soul to be pierced? He still looms over the world, his message still clear, his pity still infinite, his consolation still effective, his words still full of glory, wisdom, and love." Then we've got the evidence of Old Testament prophecy. The fact that time and again in the Old Testament a Messiah was prophesied, both the place of his birth and so many other facts about his life, every one of which of those prophecies Jesus fulfills. That's a massive piece of evidence. And finally, there's the evidence of his resurrection. We'll look at that separately in its own right another time. But the evidence for the resurrection, when you look deeper and deeper into the story, is compelling. And his resurrection, again, points clearly that this Jesus was no ordinary man, that he was, in fact, God with us. One final quote. Napoleon said this. He said, "Everything in Christ astonishes me. His spirit overawes me and his will confounds me. Between him and whoever else in the world there is no possible term of comparison. He is truly a being by himself. I search in vain in history to find the similar to Jesus Christ, or anything which can approach the gospel. Neither history, nor humanity, nor the ages, nor nature offer me anything with which I am able to compare it or explain it. I know men, and there is no comparison between Jesus and any other man who ever lived." Napoleon Bonaparte. Let me wrap this up. You know what? Relationships don't work on a proof basis. When I married my wife 30 odd years ago, I didn't have proof of anything. I had to weigh up that decision based on the evidence, on what I could see. And in the same way, I made a commitment to Jesus Christ based upon the evidence that I could see. Faith is a step that goes beyond evidence. Oh yes, it goes beyond evidence, but there is a massive launch pad of evidence from which faith can take its leap. And hopefully I've pointed you to a little bit of that today. See you in the new year.